Figure it out.
Hello, this is Adam Koralik from Figure It Out Productions. The following video is a video of some kind, and I hope you enjoy it.
Hey guys, it's Adam here, and if you're watching this video the day it came out, it is the 7th anniversary of our friend, the Nintendo Switch. And for the purposes of this video, we're going to be talking about the last year and what the future might hold. I know you guys like these anniversary videos, so let's do it. Before we do that though, if you guys could do me a favor, please like this video, comment down below, subscribe if you haven't done that before, as well as check out all my social media stuff in the description. I've got Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Discord, Patreon, Spreadshirt, my travel channel, etc. Appreciate the support on all those platforms. Thank you so much. Let's get on with it. Yes, it really is the 7th anniversary of the Nintendo Switch, which is like, I know I say this all the time in these videos, but it really is shocking how much faster time starts to go, especially like if you're out there and you're younger, you're like, oh, that'll never happen to me. Oh, it'll happen to you. like, I have a video on this channel of when this system came out, like the day of. I did my unboxing, I think on a live stream, and I was 30 years old. I'm 37 now, and I remember that like it was like last week. Like, ugh. Yeah, like, it is funny how what happened with the Switch ultimately, man. Like, it's interesting to think that when this system was coming out, and I was one of these people, I didn't think that the system was actually had that great of a shot of being successful. Like, you got to remember at the time, Nintendo itself as a corporation was not in good shape. The Wii U was a flop. They didn't seem to have any other pursuit from the 3DS as far as a next iteration. Like, they were just kind of consolidating things. It looked kind of bad for them. The third-party developers weren't really behind them, and their launch consisted of 5 games, and the only one really of note was Zelda Breath of the Wild, which in of itself was also available on the Wii U, so it wasn't even unique to the system. So it just seemed like a wow moment. But obviously, to their credit, Nintendo definitely made this system work. It is now, actually, this is one of the big accolades that happened over the last calendar year. The system has reached 140 million units sold, which they were already in 3rd place as far as like all-time sales, but that even further cemented that. And for the record, the 2nd place holder is Nintendo themselves as well, with the Nintendo DS, I think, at 154 million, and Sony's PlayStation 2 at 155 million. So one of the big questions that came up in the last year or so, in fact, I did a video on it last summer, I think it was, when the Nintendo basically revealed, I think it was about 132 million units were sold, the question was, can it catch the PlayStation 2? And I said at the time, and I say it now, if they do that, and it's entirely possible they will, that's all that's motivating them is just like, oh, isn't that coincidental? That's nice. There is no way Nintendo as a corporation is really truly cares about that. Now, let me explain what I mean by that. I have seen, because I make videos like this, because I have a Discord where there's a lot of people obviously sit around talking about gaming and all that, I have seen multiple times where people say like, oh, the reason Nintendo isn't making a new system is because they're waiting. They're waiting to make sure the Switch is the highest selling system ever so they can beat Sony. That's what it's about. As if the people running Nintendo still go to elementary school. Like, it does not work like that in the real world. I guarantee people at Nintendo are very well aware of where the sales of the system are versus other systems in their history. But I promise you, while they would love it to sell more, and they would even think, oh, having the most highest selling system ever would be cool, there's no way that's motivating them from, like, destroying their business. There's no way there was a meeting where, you know, they were like, all right, everybody, here's the problem. You know, Sony's got the PlayStation 5, Microsoft's got the Xbox Series X, and, like, PCs are so much more powerful. Like, all developers are coming at us saying we need to upgrade our hardware, and I think it's time, guys. We need to just upgrade the hardware. And one guy goes like, actually, if you don't do that, you might have the highest selling system ever, and that's the most important thing. And all of them went, you know what? Bob's right. Screw updating our hardware. Forget that. That's not going to happen. Just stick with the old hardware just to have a pointless title. There's no way. There's no way that conversation would ever happen. It's more of a, if it works that way, great. If not, oh well. And the proof of that is Nintendo themselves, who had that chance with the Nintendo DS. It only failed to reach the PS2 by like 800,000 units, which obviously sounds like a lot. They could have supported the system for like, I don't know, 6 more months and beaten out the PlayStation 2. The reason they didn't do that is because they did not see it as financially viable or worth their time anymore. That's what motivates a company, not pointless titles like that. That's just a bonus. So my point is, the Switch may very well do that, but it has nothing to do with why they haven't released a new system. So let's just get that out of the way. Next up. As far as the system itself, over the course of the last year, it really just had like 2 major titles that helped it push for their systems being sold. We already talked about Tears of the Kingdom last year, because that's how far back that went. The only one they released after that, really, was Super Mario Wonderland, which was, you know, really cool, and that did sell a lot of units, and it was a very popular game. But outside of that, Nintendo just, I mean, they made other games, don't get me wrong. Those were just like the 2 that really just pushed units. Obviously, there was also third-party support, but other than that, it was kind of a standard year. But you could see that it's starting to slow down. And honestly, I think that's what's in store for 2024. At this point in time, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not familiar with any AAA Nintendo in-house titles that are coming that are expected to be system sellers for the Switch in 2024. Now, that's about a lot of catches to that, because obviously Nintendo will continue to make games. There's even some we're really excited about. There's things like Luigi's Mansion 2 being liberated from the 3DS and brought over to the Switch. The remake or remaster, I'm not sure which one it actually is, of Thousand Year Door Paper Mario from the GameCube over to the Switch, which, funny enough, is something I kind of predicted last year when I said the future of the Switch kind of lied in the GameCube by mining more of that archive as well as putting some of that stuff on Nintendo Switch Online. In a way, I was right. It just took longer to do it than I thought they would. But regardless, those type of titles are not like massive system sellers. They're not going to do that. They're just more fodder for the people who are already enjoying the system. So with that logic understood, I think that 2024 for the Switch will continue to be just kind of similar to last year, but not have those 2 major system sellers. But you never know. Other things could happen. Switch 4K, Switch Pro. Yes, I know you guys want to talk about that. Here's an interesting paradigm shift that I have noticed in my YouTube channel, because again, I make videos like this, I see comments like this all the time, and again in Discord people are always talking about stuff like this. I have noticed an interesting change. Obviously, there has been a lot of demand over the last couple of years for Nintendo to upgrade their hardware. We want to Switch 4K, we want to Switch Pro, etc., which I always thought was kind of an outlier logic, because that's not usually how it's ever worked in console history. Like, Nintendo did do it with the new 3DS, but that was really the only time they ever did that, where they upgraded like a mid-generation cycle type of hardware. Sony did it once in the PlayStation 5 or PS4 Pro. Microsoft did it once in the Xbox Series X. And the only other one I can think of that ever did it was NEC did it with the super graphics, which even that one's kind of debatable for different reasons, but it doesn't matter. Sega, I don't even think ever did that. Point is, people treat it like it's supposed to be a standard now. Like, you're supposed to just upgrade your hardware like halfway through. Point is, it didn't happen. They never did that. In fact, the shift has changed so much so that people are no longer asking for that. What they're asking for is Switch 2, quote unquote. AKA, they want a successor system. That's where we are. The market has decided it is ready, it wants a new system. And obviously Nintendo knows about this. So the big question on everybody's mind is, when does that happen? Now, I don't personally like to speculate on rumors too much, because I just don't put any stock into them, because I'm just like, you don't know until you know. Like, I'm tired of hearing about, like, well, my buddy who works at Nintendo totally told me that they're coming out with the Switch 3. They're actually skipping ahead to the 3, and that's going to happen tomorrow, but you're not going to know about it because it's going to be a secret thing that only cool people like to have access. I do not respect those kinds of ridiculous rumors. But they must be addressed in this context, because obviously we all want to talk about it. Fine. The big one that's led, at least at the time I make this video, and keep in mind, when I film this, it does get filmed a few days before the anniversary, so if some random shocking announcement comes out, yes, I unfortunately missed it for that reason. But with the most recent announcement, there was this, I think it's Pokemon Shadow. After there's a trailer, and that's supposed to be like a big game that they're pushing for 2025, and it straight up says that. It says at the bottom of the trailer some text that seems to have excited a lot of people. It says, I believe it said, releasing simultaneously worldwide 2025. And a lot of people took this to mean, oh, you just accidentally confirmed the quote-unquote Switch 2 release by saying this is going to come out simultaneously on Switch and Switch 2. Lol, Nintendo just accidentally revealed it. And I looked at it, and I was like, no, they didn't. Simultaneously worldwide, my interpretation of that statement simply means that game will come out in Japan, North America, Europe, Australia, etc., all on the same day. That's all that meant. I really doubt that Nintendo would reveal the Switch 2 in something like that. That's not one of those weird, like, third-party developers have information they accidentally published. Like, that trailer was made by Nintendo. Like, that's not how they would do that. So, personally, I guess where I'm going with this is, I would not expect any sort of new iteration of Switch hardware this year. As far as the concept of a Pro model or a successor system, I don't see either of those things happening in 2024. I would even go so far as to say I don't really think it's going to happen in 2025, but we'll talk about that in a minute. That said, I want to cite some other reasons I think this. First and foremost is the Nintendo Switch has never had a price drop. It retailed at $300 in 2017. It still retails for $300 US in 2024. And the only way you have a price drop there is either A, you're including holiday bundles where retailers are like, well, we're not changing the price of the system, but we'll throw in a free game or whatever. That's bundles. And that's usually done by retailers, not Nintendo themselves. Or you can argue good old general inflation where $300 now is worth less than $300 7 years ago. Sure, fine. But at the same time, that's not an official price drop. So that would be like the next big move Nintendo could do to actually sell more units is do like, I don't know, like a $50 price drop. And that's as much as I would see them actually doing on it. Nintendo really doesn't like to drop the price of their hardware very much. But that said, they do usually do it when they're kind of anticipating moving on a little bit. So there's that. But again, that's circumstantial evidence. Secondly is their history, which is also very much circumstantial evidence, does not suggest they're anywhere near ready for the next system. And I base this on, if you look at their successful systems versus their unsuccessful systems, you'll notice a pattern. The unsuccessful systems rarely, if ever, get any sort of massive redesign or reissue, whereas the successful ones typically have some additional model with some sort of change right towards the end of the lifespan of the console, just to squeeze a little bit more money out before the system is completely dead, usually with some sort of gimmick or just something akin to that, just to get a little bit more money out. So let's take the last time they did do this, the 3DS. Big success for that company. And then right towards the end, they released like things like the 2DS and more accurately the new 3DS, which was effectively a Pro model that had a little bit more hardware. There was a few games that could take advantage of it, and that was kind of all she wrote. Whereas they did not do that with the Wii U because the system was a flop, and they knew that there was no point in trying to do that. Go further back, the DS, of course, had 100 different iterations. I don't remember which one. I think there was one that came out towards the end of that lifespan, but I'm not 100% on that. The GBA, though, I know that one for sure. The GBA Micro came out, I think, after the DS had already launched. So, the handheld side of things, they tend to do that, unless they flop, like the Virtual Boy, where they never did a second iteration of any kind. Console side of things, as I said, they didn't do one with the Wii U. They did do it with the Wii. They released the Wii Mini, because that system was, even though I hate it, it was a massive success. And so they put out the Wii Mini, I think, only like 6 months or so before the Wii U came out. If not even after. Honestly, I don't remember the exact timeline, but I think it was the same year. I think it both were 2012. Maybe the Wii Mini was 2011. Honestly, I don't remember. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Point is, they tend to do that right beforehand. Whereas the GameCube, even though we love the GameCube and the N64 here, I'm sure, the systems were not actually the big juggernauts of success that your nostalgia tries to tell you they were, and they never had remodels. Whereas the NES and the Super NES were both big hits, at least comparatively to what they were expecting at the time, and both of them had redesigns towards the end of their lifespan. This is kind of a common thing with Nintendo. They have a pattern. The fact that we have not reached that with the Switch tells you something. Now, understand, of course, there have been other models of the Switch. There's the OLED, there's the Lite, etc. But that's not the same logic. I would say if you found out Nintendo was going to release a slightly refreshed, redesigned version of the Switch normal hardware towards the end of this year, then be prepared, because that means they're ready to go. They're just squeezing some life out of the system. That's what I would think of that. And that maybe could be a surprise thing that happens towards the end of the year. I don't really know. And if not that hardware would be particularly interesting, I would think. Maybe like, oh, we now have 128 gigabytes of internal storage or something like that in it. Like beyond that, I don't know what else it would even do. But that's whatever. My point is, I don't really think we're going to get a new console this year. I think that the plan this year is just continue to put out games, just kind of have a nice consistent library of stuff. I'm sure it's Nintendo, so they'll drop a couple surprises on us, but that's kind of all I would expect out of them while they gear up. And here's the thing. I do absolutely believe they are working on their next iteration of hardware. I also think that's why you're getting less and less like these, what we call the AAA games, because they're basically preparing for the launch of the next machine and so on and so forth. But we're just not at that point yet. And that point could be 2025. I don't really know, obviously. And then if it is, we'll obviously talk about it at that point. But yeah, so Nintendo Switch, happy 7th birthday. You're doing very well. As far as projections, I mean, like, again, I think you're going to get some surprise games out there. I think you're going to get some nostalgia games out there. And I hope you get a price cut. That's like the one, even though it's not that like sexy or exciting, I think that's like the one thing you might get out of them that's kind of like, oh, didn't see that coming. But if you guys do want to talk a little bit about what I would expect from a Switch 2, this is my, and I hate using that term because I really don't think they would call it that, but I do believe Nintendo would stick to the Switch family, because Nintendo likes to do stuff in families like the Game Boy line, and then there was kind of the Wii line, the DS line, etc. Whenever something works, they try to stick with that. Switch obviously worked, so I think they'll stick with it. But how do you upgrade it into the next generation? When I say next generation, I don't necessarily mean like generations of consoles. I just mean upgrade for this particular thing. My idea would be, so the thing with the Switch is the idea was you want to have a portable system that's essentially the exact same experience as it is when it's docked, so it's on a television. It's supposed to be simultaneous, and if you're playing one, you can just pick up the system and continue to play it elsewhere, right? Makes sense. But what they did advertise, although I'm not sure so many people care about this feature exactly or know about it, is when it's docked, it does actually have a little bit additional horsepower, because it's, I'm assuming the reason for this is mostly because it's drawing electricity from an outlet instead of a battery, therefore it can allocate resources in other ways. Therefore, you get like more stable frame rate, you get higher resolution typically, that kind of thing, but not in any like massive way. What if the next iteration of the Switch took that idea and coupled it with what the original idea of the Wii U was, and you try to make the ultimate system in that sense? Now imagine a portable iteration of the Switch 2. You can play whatever you want on it, you have your games, etc. If you get within range of your dock, which can communicate presumably wirelessly, the system is then smart enough to transfer the idea of you playing this game over to the Switch dock. And then the system itself, or the screen, becomes essentially just a monitor, kind of like the Wii U tablet was essentially just a screen that was being, fueled by the system. And from there, you could have multiple features. Any sort of Switch 2 game you have could now use the Switch dock for far beefier capabilities, because then they're no longer limited to the capabilities of a handheld necessarily, while simultaneously allowing you technically to have access to two screens. This would mean that, A, all your Switch games would be totally compatible with it, which is great. I'm sure people would be on board with that. But theoretically, Nintendo, who has finally figured out the power of nostalgia, could resell you Wii U games, which, to be fair, they already kind of did by converting them to the Switch for the most part, but whatever. They could also start reselling you DS and 3DS games. And I see potential in that. And it also would be like the logical evolution of the system. It would be kind of interesting. Now, I'm no engineer, so I don't know what the docking capabilities would be or how much data you can really send over wirelessly, etc., or if you would be required to at least maybe some sort of hardline USB-C connection or something. I don't really know. Where the game itself would sit, like if you had a cart, does it have to be in the system? Does it have to be in the screen? Does it not matter? I don't know. Or would it be entirely digital and it wouldn't make a difference? Ironically, that would be a situation where a digital-only infrastructure would be beneficial. And I hate to say that because I am physical only. And if you hear the police outside or sirens, that's them coming to get me for making that suggestion of possibly digital only. But no, don't want that. But anyway, that's just like me waxing inane about what I would want to see in a Switch 2. But I'm curious, like, what do you guys think about that idea? What do you have your own ideas for any sort of successor to the system? And the Switch itself, like, did you enjoy it over the last year? Do you have one? I assume you do. Do you think they will catch Sony as far as the highest system sold ever? What are your thoughts? Tell me about them. Go ahead in the comments. And if you want to continue that type of discussion, again, I remind you that in my Discord, we're constantly talking about stuff like that. So please go check it out. Again, all that stuff's in the description. So with that, I want to thank you guys very much for watching. Hopefully you guys had a fun little 7th birthday with the Nintendo Switch. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, as well as check out all the social media stuff in the description. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Discord, Patreon, Spreadshirt, and the Travel Channel. I appreciate support on all those platforms. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all later.